Hey, this is Chris Howard here at AfterBuzz TV, and we're going to be rolling here momentarily with The Profit episodes 14 and 15. Stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
You know what I never realized?
What?
That it's AfterBuzz TV, and it looks like a bee.
Well, you know what? Sometimes the mic covers are just all black.
Okay.
Or like all one color, like they're purple. You know, we have accessories here. We color coordinate our
We do
set.
color. We're going to talk about that in a bit. So Chris Howard here. Welcome, buzzers here for the Profit, and of course we got episodes 14 and 15 today. Really good episodes. So we're going to be enjoying sharing this with you. You can reach me, reach out, join the conversation with us. This is, we want this to be an interactive love fest. So please write to us, tweet to us.
Hit us up.
I just attempted to go on Periscope. Yes, Katerina is still
give
single.
Periscope instruction, private instruction, hit Chris Howard up.
Yeah, exactly. Hit me up for that.
I'll give you a lesson after this show.
So
I've been on
Periscope.
My Periscope is popping.
We're going to do a Periscope lesson at the end of the session here because we're talking about business. But you can reach me at Chris Howard Live on Twitter and Instagram, as well as you can go to legendarylivingdaily.com for tips, mindset, inspiration. That's really cool stuff. And then legendarylivingtv.com for the YouTube channel. The blah, blah, blah. YouTube channel.
And it's a great YouTube channel.
Thank you.
Check it out.
Thank you.
Yes.
Where can we reach you, lovely ladies?
Everyone can find me at Niena Drake, Niena Drake. That is not Drake the rapper, but Drake my real name.
Drake Niena.
On Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, and Periscope, but actually to my website, NienaDrake.com, or on my Facebook, DJ Niena Drake.
Beautiful.
And I'm a little tougher to find. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Katerina Cozias, so fairly simple. You can also check me out, though, daily via my website. It's globalgab.com. It's global-gab.com, where I chit-chat with you, I gab with you about things trending internationally in the news.
Beautiful.
Yes, and this week we had a couple of big earthquakes in Japan, another big earthquake in Ecuador.
Yikes.
So we were, wondering whether or not people are worried out there about earthquakes in California. If you're in California and you're watching this, hit us up because we've been taking some polls lately.
Right, really? Okay, that's fascinating.
They say it's all connected and it's global warming and it's getting a little scary.
Really? We need Al Gore.
We do need alcohol.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord.
Let's get into the show.
So let's jump into the show. The show is on. These were really good episodes. We watched episode 14 and 15. And number 14 was a revisit to Standard Burger. So we went back there. This is a company that Marcus helped out previously. And then the second episode, we went to Wikked with the candles. And so we're going to talk about both of these. First of all, let's go to overall impressions of episode 14, Standard Burger.
Wow.
But what was your overall impressions of this particular episode?
It was so intense. I felt like I was like in a what do you call that, ultimate fighting?
Yeah,
like
it seemed like
I was on the edge of like
Jersey
an ultimate
Shore.
fight. And that's exactly what I said.
I wrote down Jersey Shore with Goodfellas kind of mixed all together and
oh my God, it was like Jersey Shore meets ultimate UFC fighting and a burger. Okay, it was like food, fun, and fighting.
It was all that Italian passion.
Food, fun, and fighting. Yeah. It was. Do you think it does have something to do with that?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm half Italian, so I know a little something about it. But I'm gonna defend our happy aggressiveness. It always comes from a good place.
Well, these guys, it was 5 friends that launched this Standard Burger
joint.
The burger joint. We've seen this. It's from a previous episode, so this was a follow-up 6 months later, and they made a lot of progress, but there were a lot of things that weren't moving at the pace that they wanted to. Katerina, what were your overall episodes? Overall episodes.
My feel. I enjoyed this one. I enjoyed the passion. It kept me engaged. There was the drama coming in.
Yeah.
I think anytime you try to get 5 guys together, especially guys that are friends, I don't know if that equates necessarily to success in business, but I think they did a really good job, and I think it was good that Marcus checked in on them. because he got them back on the right track, and we'll go into that here in some detail.
Yeah, detail. So we're looking at the details. The details. No, there's lots of details that are relevant here because but the infighting amongst the friends, I think, was the big deal here.
Right. Yeah.
You had Joe that went very aggro.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. Like, unnecessarily, I kind of know. Yeah, he was
had
very
like little things would trigger huge emotional responses. I mean, his face would turn purple as he was yelling at his friends
Sammy.
and at Sammy. Yeah. Have y'all seen that in other places in the business environment where people switch like that or get really angry? Have you ever worked with anybody like that?
I've never worked with anyone like that. I stay away from people like that because I mean it's not just a physical thing. Like if we could have muted this episode and just watched it without any volume and hearing what the conversation was behind it, you would have seen that it was still overly aggressive. So I just stay away from people because it drains you emotionally and it's like contagious. So I stay away from bad, negative people like that.
Right. So it's very intimidating. It was all about the intimidation,
for
right?
No
and
reason.
Intense. Yeah. And I got the sense that Joe was really justifying it, and that was an aspect of his personality that he liked, embraced, and wanted to keep.
And probably has cultivated over the years, right? He's used this before to, be the alpha male or try to be the alpha male. I'm not saying that he was, but he uses that aggression and that physicality.
Yeah, he looked like a mean guy, like a tough guy. Yeah,
right, but did the toughness accomplish anything?
Right.
No.
Or would some solid communication skills have come into play a little bit better for him?
Might have saved his job, actually, because so Marcus ended up getting rid of him. So Marcus comes in. They're doing. They had a substantial increase in sales, I believe, since the time that Marcus had come in.
Yeah,
6 months.
They went from
6 months.
They went from 50,000 a month to 180,000.
To 180,000, and there was like a $73,000 what was it? Gross profit on that, which is not shabby.
Not bad at all.
Yeah. So the people problem still wound up being a problem in here, and all my notes I just lost because my computer crashed. But I noticed that the people problems were huge, especially between him and Sammy. And
the mistake they had made originally was they had gotten rid of Fuji. Fuji was the cook,
the brother, chef, Sammy's brother that
knew how to actually make the good burgers.
Right.
So thankfully they brought him back. What I found interesting was the fact that this team, when they went to the cook-off, to the big World Fair,
Time Magazine. Time Out.
It was Time Out Magazine. Yeah, Time Out New York, right?
Right, to the Battle of the Burger.
Yeah.
And they ended up winning. This was 50 competitors.
That's pretty amazing.
Burgers in New York City. Yeah. This has got to be a damn good burger. And Time Out Magazine is the entertainment magazine for New York. That's a big deal.
I trust their competitions and their perspective on things too.
For sure.
So we don't know if there was any, under the table type stuff that happened to get them to win, or if it was just their valuable, amazing burger.
Well, they did have Marcus there with them and television cameras, and that can never hurt. Yeah.
But you go back to Marcus's 3 Ps, which are people, process, and product.
Yeah.
In this case, the product was good, the process wasn't bad, but it was the people that was the disconnect.
Right. That was the biggest disconnect.
And we hadn't seen that as often in recent episodes.
Yeah.
Well, they did have an issue with the process though too. While things seemed really good on the surface initially, when Marcus went back to the kitchen, some of the actual
up 3 meals in a row. Yeah.
The employees were trying to blame Marcus, like, you came in here and you threw us off. He was like, hold on, these orders were placed before I even got here.
What did you think of their addition of the non-original menu items that were popping up on the chalkboards and stuff?
That was him being just extra.
I think
him, Joe.
Yes.
What they ended up doing was they put in a $6 version of the burger, so that they could have a lower price point on their offerings. It was $7 for the standard burger, and it was $6 for this
regular burger.
This regular burger, which was just a burger that was minus
tomatoes.
Maybe I get the 2 names mixed up, but the $6 burger had nothing on it, right?
It was just a burger and a bun.
Yeah, and it was just a burger and a bun. And then they wanted to up it another $1 for the lettuce, the piece of tomato,
and the onion.
And Marcus is asking these guys to do the math. They're like, how much is that? And they're like, well, it's at least 50 cents more. There's no way that the condiments and the little accessories for the burger are going to be 50 cents. cents.
Right.
That's like 10 cents maximum, right?
And so Marcus brought out the calculator and the weight machine, and he was up there weighing those onions and that lettuce and the tomato. And Marcus was like, we're going to get these numbers right, because that's how he operates. He likes to operate under numbers.
You can't operate a business by guessing, right? I think this was his point.
Yeah, Joe was guessing.
And all guesses aren't created equal, because some people, you know, Marcus's guess would probably be far more right on than
accurate,
Joe's guess.
Well, you know, they had a problem. They had a challenge this show with the food cost, right? So typical food cost for a restaurant of this type is
30%,
around about 30%.
That's what he wanted to hit. Was he wanted to have a 30
or less, right?
But they were at 34.
They were at 34,
which is fascinating. Did that surprise you at all that he would quibble over just 4 percentage
Absolutely,
points?
because on a mass scale, that definitely adds up to a lot of money, loss or gain. So Marcus is going to count every single penny, and when that onion was a penny, he was like, I want to know that it's a penny, and
they were saying 10 or 9 cents, 9 cents for the onion. Right?
Joe's argument was, well, this is our biggest selling product. Well, sure, it's your cheapest.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So the minute he points that out to them, they all sat there going, oh.
But you got to get the logic of, I mean, if you're there and you're like, well, we need to make something easier for people to get, you get why they would do it, but they don't understand the ramifications of it when you really look at the numbers and stuff.
Well, you know what they could do is they could offer the regular $7 burger with the veggies. Yeah. And people can pay $7 and take it to their table and take off the lettuce, onions, and tomatoes, right? And they've got $7 in their pocket. They don't have to necessarily offer.
I'm getting confused between the two names. I would think that you'd go with the standard burger would be the $7 one, but they had the names reversed, right? It was just a regular burger.
I seem to remember.
I don't remember what he called them, but I just know that the difference,
you know,
the difference didn't make sense to me. I mean, but I think what Joe was trying to do was work off of the psychology of how he orders food, right?
Right.
So if he as a person walks into a restaurant and I see something that's $5 or $6 versus $7, I'm always going to go for the lower amount. And he wasn't using dollars and cents to justify that.
He was going with what he felt was right.
That's why he's using that lower psychology theory.
Right.
That's why he's not on a yacht.
And Marcus
because
said
he's lowering the quality of everything in his life.
Yeah.
And by reflection, the quality of the amount of money he makes.
The quality. Yeah.
It was bad. It didn't make sense. And I mean, I don't eat burgers, so I eat veggie burgers. But you know, at the end of the day, I do enjoy, as a consumer, I enjoy the condiments on my sandwich. I don't want you to a la carte me every single piece of ketchup, lettuce, tomato.
More ketchup. You want to? That's like when you go to the airport and they say,
like you're trying
"Do you
to
have a bag?" Why, yes, I do. That's $100 more.
It really makes you as a consumer. It makes you as a consumer not trust the vendor, because you're like, wait a minute. So why are you trying to get over on me?
Yeah.
It seems kind of shady
from a
consumer's perspective.
Because you would expect that to be there.
What did we think of John, the franchisor?
I thought he was
suggestions.
Awesome.
I thought it was so neat that they brought this aspect into it and started to package. And I loved what Marcus had said mid-episode, where he said, you know, our job is not we're not in the business of going and finding places that we can rent out and opening a second store. We're in the business of getting a box, polishing it up, making it look great, and selling those boxes. Yeah. So the franchise model, and I think it's brilliant from a business and learning perspective to see at this phase in the business that yes, if they get the business, because we've seen in other episodes where people were too quick to go to the franchise.
Right.
Whereas in this one, if they get the business model and they get it working and it's right and it's firing on all cylinders, then all right, now let's take that, and our new business is selling these.
Right.
And so I love to see the prep for that. I love to see John coming in for that. What'd y'all think? What's your thoughts on?
I think it was typical Marcus to be very strategic and have a core foundation and then build from that. And that's always what Marcus likes to do, whether it's a product or a service or whatever type of business it is. And that's just what he was doing again, which was really, really smart. And again, Joe didn't make sense of he couldn't
they couldn't wrap their mind around it, could they?
Why can't I build this empty, why can't I use this retailer? And the really good point that Marcus made when he showed up to the non-existent under construction wannabe retail location was he was like, okay, what are the other vendors or other retailers that are going to be surrounding our business?
Right.
And are they our same demographic that we're trying to attract? And if they're not, then why are we
What are we
here?
doing
Why
here?
are we situated
Right.
here? And I, along like some years ago, I did some commercial real estate, and I was working with a real estate developer to like scout locations, right? And so you deal with people.
Did you look at all those factors
They
that
look
you
at
touched on?
well, we were selling. I was on the side of the real estate developer.
Okay.
And so when it came down to the retailers wanting to rent space and do contracts with us, which those contracts are very long-term contracts,
Right.
anywhere from like 5 to 10 years.
So you're talking like in shopping centers and stuff.
Absolutely,
right?
and strip malls and things
Strip
like
malls,
that.
yeah.
And so when it came down for them, us presenting them the space and what type of options that they could have with it, they were always questioning what the other retailers that have already
course,
bought in,
yeah.
and then also what is the demographic of the neighborhood, you know, and that's what Marcus asked him. He was like, you need to know these numbers. You cannot know who's going to be shopping here, because
Right.
if it's solely based on foot traffic and not in an area where we're going to get other type of traffic coming in, we're dependent on the
it
other
seems to me
retailers.
that
And
that's-
a nice benchmark that they talked about was 8%. Typically for a restaurant, 8% of your sales should go towards rent. And when they did the math on this new space that they were assessing, it was double that.
Right. So they weren't. They didn't have their mind wrapped around the right things to look at, but they were looking in the wrong place altogether. So it's
Right.
kind of like we're having a conversation about what what's the best place to sit in the car when we're about to hit
Right.
something up ahead. It's like so his whole point was why should we be we were focusing in the wrong place.
Yeah.
You guys are just totally
Yeah.
off base with the business model. What we're supposed to do is get this one working and then sell.
And again,
more
back to the
of
franchising, what John brought in as a third-party independent person that was looking at it from a different view is he came in with two really good suggestions.
Right.
One was add some alternative options to the menu.
Yep.
And the second one was add a kids menu.
Right.
So those two things were missing, and let's be honest, a lot of people out there, especially people heading to burger joints, have kids.
Right.
So I thought these were really smart suggestions.
Yeah, and in terms of the types of suggestions that John was giving, what I also liked about Marcus's stance on it was he was inviting those. It's like, hey,
Right.
so when I was looking at the sales conversation that was being had in terms of, Marcus ideally wanted to move John into the place where he raises his hand and says, yes, I want a franchise, the first one. And so to watch how the interaction occurred, he's like, so what do you have? What input do you have in terms of how this is being run? What would you like to see more of? And then he said, okay, let us put our proposal together for you. Let's take a little bit of time. So it was kind of neat that he engaged him right away in that way, and then had him come back, and the conversation, they put in both the aspects, like you said, there was the kids menu and the hot dogs. That hot dog
What
was
you guys
huge.
think of the
Oh my
$13
God.
hot dog?
I don't eat hot
$15.98,
dogs.
right?
And I would never eat a hot dog that looked like that. It was huge.
Oh, I love
And
the hot dog.
I'm so good.
And I
I'm
would
so
pay
good.
Yeah, but you're
$13 for a
single,
hot dog.
Katerina. Katerina's
I'm single too, but that hot dog was gross.
I would pay $13 for that hot dog at 2 a.m. when I am hungry, and I would go specifically to Standard Burger for that hot dog.
You would, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
It was
I
huge. It
would.
was like, yeah.
Oh, it looked great.
They had a catch. There was a niche to the product. So aside
Right.
from me
There's the
not
wow
eating
factor,
meat
right?
at
Yes.
all, I don't eat meat. And if you know what's in hot dogs, you probably
Probably wouldn't either. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
So-
say that. We're gonna have the cattle industry, or who is it? Like all the chicken parts industry coming after us.
So, but I'm all for it. So at the end of the day, I thought what was interesting, aside from that, was from a marketing perspective, is they said, okay, we're going to have a niche product there. It doesn't have to fit into the lines, and it's going to be different than what most people, because I thought initially when they were in the factory that they were going to like show them some chicken nuggets or something,
Right.
because you think on a scale of a chicken based product,
I was
because that's
surprised that
usually
they
the
came
next
in
option.
with a beef hot dog as an alternative to a beef burger. I thought they'd come in with chicken or with
interesting.
something.
That's what I thought they were going to
They
do.
could have very well done that. I mean,
Right.
but when you look at the personality of the guys and the kind of the crowd that they're attracting, I get it. But I also understand what you're saying. It's like, yeah, that might have.
And I'm surprised they didn't come in with 2 or 3 options, actually.
provided
Well,
more.
I feel like they probably did. The vendor probably showed them multiple options, but what at the end of the day they ended up having to do as producers of a show, you can't show everything. So they probably cut that part out and just utilize what was was the ultimate.
And the
use.
margins
Yeah, it was
on
good.
hot
That was
dogs,
good for TV.
the gross margin on
Yeah.
hot dog was really good, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
So we're looking at
High
bringing
margin,
the cost
high
back to where
margin
they needed to be.
items.
What I loved was Marcus jumping on the phone and negotiating with the vendors.
Absolutely.
Right.
And he got what he wanted pretty quick.
Right.
Right.
They saved 10% in cost, which is huge. I mean, if you imagine 10% is
huge.
When you look at the end of the day, if a business makes 30% net profit, but they were able to glean that from just a couple of phone calls with the vendors having the willingness to ask.
Sure. Yeah.
You know,
and I think it was
amazing.
Madonna that said, if you don't ask, how are you supposed to receive?
There you
Right,
go.
and I mean this is biblical as well, but
You're
Madonna
very
as well.
secretish today.
I am. I'm just coming out with just one-liners.
Were you listening to the Law of Attraction on your way over here? I bet you were. You listened to Bob Proctor. Hey, Bobby.
I was gonna say Chris knows me well. That's funny. But now there's something to be said for that, right? Put out what you want. Put your set your intention. And then work towards achieving it.
And most business owners wouldn't think of that. I mean, people are going in, there's a high rate of business failure, but most people wouldn't think, oh, I want to go and get those 3% or those 4%, and that's what makes.
But that
it all adds up. It all adds up in the end. And it's like with credit. Like if you're a consumer, they say if you have interest rates on any of your loans, whether it's a personal loan or auto loan or credit card, you always want to take the effort and make that phone call, because if you don't make the phone call, you'll never know whether you could have had savings, across your budget. And that's what he did. Even though it was from an interesting perspective. And you listen to how Marcus pitched it to him, and he was like, we're planning on growing this, and that's why the vendor was lenient with him, because he looked at the big picture.
Future profit.
Again, it's the big picture, and that's how Marcus looks at it.
Yeah.
What did you think of the controversy that happened in between all of this with Nikki, the employee,
oh my
her
God.
dad, and the whole parking lot fiasco?
Mess. That was a hot mess.
Okay, I want to hear.
That was very Jersey Shore right there.
Have you ever gotten it on with a
Jersey
boss
Shore.
in the workplace like that and had it blown up in your face?
Have I ever done that? I've never crossed the line with any of my employers. No, absolutely not.
Katerina?
I'm used to being the employer, so I've never crossed any with my employees.
Okay, all right.
I think that's something that, especially if you're working in business, you've got to be, you've got to keep an eye out on. But again, I could see Joe wanting to get with the waitress. I mean, come on.
But when there's no policy in place, I think that's a policy type of a thing. And I guess in my life, I learned the hard way by making mistakes, and then afterwards get it blow up in my face. But it's like, and not just in relationship to that, but it's kind of. I read a book by a past CIA agent, and he talks about standard of duty and standard of care. He said when you don't have a standard of care in place, or at least some sort of a policy in place in terms of what should be done versus what shouldn't be done, then you have problems. But then you've got the people that have to go implement, and that's so you get the rules in place, and then you've got them they've got to they have the duty to make sure those rules stay in place, and hence why we get speaking of global gab, you get the Secret Service agents. I think it was Secret Service agents of Hillary Clinton that were over, and they were in with the prostitutes and stuff.
Yes.
And the prostitutes were apparently funded by the drug dealers and the drug cartel.
Yeah.
So you get in compromised positions, and we saw a compromised position. And I never evaluated things from that perspective before I got into business and made mistakes.
Fair enough, right? And
and it's like, okay, you got to clean up your act, right? Because
you live and learn.
because you can be in a compromised position, and you can, because on a global scale with global politics, there's like a lot to be won or lost. Even here, I mean, a scandal like this can be huge. It can demoralize the rest of the employees. It can. It's everything. So the guy, Joe, was sleeping with one of the waitresses, and then fires her.
Right. But the thing is, one thing, he was sleeping with her, which he shouldn't have been.
Right.
Second thing, the way he fired her over the phone. Now, this is someone that was employed at Standard Burger for 3 years.
Did he email her or over the phone?
No, he did it over the phone.
He just called.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, 3 years employment.
Yeah. Oh, she was there for 3 years.
Yes.
He said that she was still in training and evaluation or something. That's what he said. She's
3
under
years
evaluation.
Later,
Yeah, she was there for 3 years.
You can appreciate why she was a little bit upset.
Right.
But again, you get her dad in there, also named Joe.
Yeah, he shows up. Now this is weird. So Marcus is out there, and you've got Sammy, one of the 5 owners, and the one who's the largest equity player, who's calling Joe out. He says that Joe's bullshitting you, Marcus. He's feeding you full of crap about how well things are running.
There was a he said, she said, he said.
And then, just as they're getting into this, this girl's father shows up. And
I literally started laughing out loud.
yeah,
I thought, oh my.
that had to be coordinated,
Marcus
right?
was like, I'm surprised you didn't whoop his ass, and I would have done that.
That's
Absolutely.
the father, right?
It
so
was
Marcus
so
was surprised
inappropriate
that the
for
father
him.
didn't whip Joe's ass, the manager.
At the end of the day, you cannot treat people like that.
Right.
Joe was absolutely, unequivocally, undeniably out of line. There was no excuse for it. What he did was unacceptable from a business perspective and a personal perspective. And it's not, this is the thing, at the end of the day, when you're dealing with people and you're in that position as a business owner, it's not always what you do, but how you do it. In the same way that Marcus fired Joe is the way Joe should have taken that young lady through the right process and protocol in order to fire her.
And
What did you
way.
think of Marcus firing Joe? I guess he demoted him.
He's demoted him, but I think he totally should have fired him. He couldn't have done
Well,
too
he was
much.
an equity owner, so he couldn't.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
fire
There
him.
was the limit to where Joe's, power was in the company, so that's why he didn't let go of him. But at the end of the day, I'm glad that Marcus did the
He
right
set the
thing. He let him
standard.
go. Yeah. And I would have actually done worse, but I guess it cooled Joe off. Because when he came back at the end of the episode, he was like more happy. He seemed more at peace. But Joe needs to go for anger management and training.
for sure.
Joe, if you're watching this, you need to go for anger management and training, unless you've already gotten it. Just like you get a bill and they say, if you've already paid this, you don't have to deal with it. You can ignore this notice, but Joe, you need training.
We want to hear from you at home. Do you think
Yes,
Joe
please.
needs anger
Yes.
management?
Does Joe need anger management?
absolutely does.
Tweet us at Joe needs anger management. Hashtag Joe. Just tweet us. Tweet us, reach out to us, let us know your thoughts. What did you think was the most important business learning in this episode? Let us know what you think is the most important business. What was fascinating for me, and I think that's good that they get to see, or that we get to see these types of interactions, because this stuff happens in the workplace all the time.
Yeah.
And like I said, for me, if there's no policy in place, and I've had enough years in business to know that I've made mistakes along the way, because once you lose moral authority in relationship to the you go over those boundaries, then and you're in an evaluation, you're sitting in an evaluatory perspective in relationship to that person, it becomes very difficult to then say, well, here's where you're missing the mark, here's where you're doing this, and it carries less weight for me. It's interesting because I had a conversation with Richard Branson, who does he launched the Virgin Companies. Yeah. So this was back in 2008. And I said, so what do you think about, whether because there's different theories about how close you get with employees and that type of thing. He said, that's a bunch of American rubbish.
Huh.
And
Meaning?
I said, what do you mean? He said, well, no, I party with my employees. He says, and then he was quick to say, drink. Drink.
Right, and then it usually stops there.
Well, kind of, sort of. I mean, you see Richard shaking up the bottles of champagne and popping them off.
Do you believe that actually creates a team environment?
Does
that build loyalty?
Because I worked at Club Med for 6 years, it was very much integrated, and so there were no boundaries. Like, it's a French-owned company, which is a little bit more risque, if you want. So there weren't the type of solid, rigid boundaries. They didn't have the
Americans are the most rigid with respect to all of this.
I don't know, but I can't say Club Med had its fair share of problems as well as a result of the lack of those types of things. So, sitting here at 46 years old, I'd say you're better off putting the boundaries in place and having the rules in place and not having room for
the gray areas,
the legal problems and all the crap that can come from it, and even just it's like pissing in your own dirt, the sandbox, right? So
but you just don't want to do that. At the end of the day, there are laws in place and things that protect employees. And at the end of the day, you just don't want to cross that line, because what Marcus knows, and he's been in the business for so long, is that he knows that young lady could have sued them.
Well, we don't know that, because
for being improperly fired.
She
absolutely could have
was
fired.
she ever properly employed, though? See, this whole thing seemed very casual to me in terms of a business before
she was
Marcus
getting a
came
check.
in.
She was getting a check. She was there on a consistent basis. She has there's record of other employees that are vouched. She was there.
There's no doubt.
No, she was an employee. At the end of the day, she could have sued, and I believe that is why Marcus did what he did in the way that he did it.
Joe was a liability.
Absolutely. There's no way that Joe should have remained in that position.
Totally agree.
I wouldn't want to work with him. I like working with people who, and speaking to the culture.
Right.
The culture of every company is different, right?
And the culture of every country. That's why when I went to go work for a French-owned company, totally different than
But
over
that's
here.
why it's important for us to kind of know what the vibe is before we join.
Is it a match?
It's like it's like a marriage in a way, and you want to make sure that your energy and your goals and how you work and your system is closely aligned. It's not going to be perfect,
right,
because everyone's different, but at the end of the day, you just want to make sure that that the culture of the company is a great place for you and you'll work well with everybody else.
But what if you go in thinking that, and then you start having a relationship with your boss, and then things blow up?
It's not like it hasn't happened before.
Originally.
Like dating your boss?
Well, they were
that
dating.
happens all the time, though.
They do. I know a lot of situations where it's happened, and people keep it on the low. I know people who've met each other at work and they've gotten married.
But most people, that's what most people
don't
meet.
do that.
They meet at work. You know?
I don't cross that line because it gets very, when you mix emotions and a lot.
You bring your problems to the table.
We look at all
very,
the other episodes. Think about all the consistent issues that we've seen in most of these episodes. In every previous episode, we talked about The Profit. It's emotional, and when you bring that into play in a negative way, emotional in a good way,
and
always
then that's
is
going
good.
to permeate everything.
It's literally, it's not cool. So I like to keep the workplace a positive vibe, fun vibe, productive, progressive vibe with all my people that I work with too.
I think that's good. But the point that you made about the culture of the organization that you're working is going to make a difference as well. Because the reality is that there's so many different types of work environments where, like when I was, I was teaching seminars on the road, and we lived on the road. If you weren't in relationship with somebody that worked there, then you didn't have a relationship. So it's a little bit different. It's like, how do you how do you manage all that? But we see that once again it comes to people, process, and product, and the people issues in this particular episode outweighed. If they can get their shit together, then it doesn't matter how good the product is.
Do you think that they managed to rein everything in by the end of the episode?
I think it's a work in progress, right? It's still a work in progress. I felt like even at the end of the table, when the last scene, when everyone was sitting at the table and they like high-fived each other, I felt like it was good. It was better, but it was not where Marcus would like it to be.
Yeah, and especially if you're looking to franchise. Now that's one place where you really have to clean up everything. You got to be by the book.
But they did get their franchise at the end of the day,
right? Well, it looked like it. They got a handshake. We'll see.
Okay.
I believe it when the money's in the bank, right? But
exactly.
but it looked like they were moving toward the franchise model, and they're moving in that direction. But that's where you have to be really, I've talked to some people that train franchise franchise owners, and they say, I say, how do you really get the culture to spread when you've got multiple people
and various locations?
Yeah, how do you do that? And he said all you have to do is be very strict on the guidelines, on the brand guidelines, and call it every time somebody's out of adherence with the brand guideline. Every time, because it lets slip.
I guess you'd have to,
One slip becomes two slips.
And the thing with the franchise is the whole premise, the whole value is the consistency. If there's no consistency, it's not going to work. I want to know when I'm pulling into that drive-thru and I'm over that counter that I'm going to get my hot dog. It's going to be the same one every time.
$13 hot dog,
But that happens a lot when you go to different. Like, I love Tender Greens, right? It's an LA thing, y'all. If
I've
you
never
guys
even
are watching,
heard of Tender Greens.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God, their hummus is the best in the world. But anyway, it's a restaurant out here, and there's several different ones around the city. In most
I actually
restaurants
just
like
drove
that.
by one.
It's so good. It's healthy. It's really good for you. So anyway, I noticed when I go, I've been to at least 4 different ones in the city. There's one in Studio City, Hollywood, Santa Monica, and somewhere else. So I've been to different ones, and I order the exact same thing.
Okay.
Every time I go to the restaurant, I go order the exact same thing.
I want the $13
and it's
hummus.
not the same. It's actually $2.50 for a half order, $4 for a double order. But it's not the same. And so what it's forced me to do, from especially speaking to this episode, is it's forced me to not go to the other branches of that same restaurant around the city and go back to the one where I know it's the best.
Because they're different.
That exact same
as a customer?
It is horrible as a customer because I'm looking for one particular thing.
Listen up.
Get your hummus right. Get your hummus together. No, but that and there's other things, but that speaks to the brand consistency. Like if you don't have the product together on a consistent basis, or you don't have the culture together, you don't have the
consistent experience. Like it's like you go to McDonald's, you know what you're getting. I know you don't go to McDonald's, but you do know what you're getting if you go to McDonald's. And they even have that at Whole Foods, because I was over in Mar Vista. I was living in Mar Vista, and they had 2 Whole Foods, one that was down on Venice and the other one that was closer to the Mar Vista area. But the Mar Vista one, or actually I can't remember which one it was, but one of them didn't have the full like the
buffet.
the buffet of the
I know exactly what you're talking about.
exactly.
I've been there. Yeah.
And I was like, well, what's this? And I go there expecting it, and when they don't have it, it's like, oh my gosh, that's too bad. You know,
it's city to city too, because I've
so there's no
shopped
brand consistency.
at Whole Foods in Chicago, and
Even
there's certain items that they make. We have the 2nd largest Whole Foods in the world in Chicago.
Wow.
The first one is in London, and the second one is in Chicago. But there's a specific type of tuna salad that I eat, and they do not make it in any other Whole Foods around the country. I've been to the one in New York and in LA, and it's interesting how they switch things up. I understand that the consumer may want different things in different cities, but if you're in the same city, the products should be consistent across the board.
Yeah, I agree with you. Anything else to wrap up about this episode, and then we'll go into the next one because we're.
I wish the boys well.
Yeah. No, I hope they do. I'd love to see that roll out.
I'd like to have a standard burger next time I'm in New York.
Yes.
They need a veggie burger on the menu, guys. You need some options for veggie people.
There you go. They want it. They want chicken. They want veggies.
No chicken. Just give me the veggies. Y'all got hot dogs and burgers. Give us a veggie burger.
There you go. Perfect. So let's move on to episode 15, which was Wikked.
Yes.
What y'all think? I like the candles. I love the first ones that he did. I like the
pre-drip candles. I love those.
Very gothic.
I love those.
Yeah, I like the goth style and all that. And what was interesting in this episode was that Marcus took Mark, who was it was Mark and Sam was his wife. They had a candle company called Wikked, and it was basically drip candles. It's this unique styling
thematic
of
candles.
It was thematic. It was goth, and it was very. I think they described it as being the tortured artist type of
candle,
a feel to it. A higher end candle that was selling at $40, which Marcus thought was too high, but. I got that brand. I also got what Marcus was saying, because the whole episode was essentially about Mark falling in love with what he thought everybody wanted, but it was so niched that they couldn't.
I thought it was a fantastic approach and a fantastic product, but so very niche.
Yeah.
They hadn't turned a profit in 5 years.
Yikes.
So you'd think 5 years into this business, you may want to check yourself and say, is anyone buying this?
Right. So it
was an emotional, Mark and Sam. I think Sam, they were the cutest couple. I thought Mark and Sam looked adorable together, and I love when husband and wife teams can work together and create, like somebody's supporting the dream of one other one. I thought that was amazing how they as a team were able to support each other even through the stresses that they were going through.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I liked how Sam knew her husband well. She knew when to allow him to share his story and why he was tied up so emotionally attached to the product, and then couldn't get over dealing with other people and relinquishing that power and control. It was hard for him, but I love how she didn't try to speak for him.
Right.
She just waited and said, it's not a good time to talk, or she just took a step back, and I thought that was very graceful of her.
She was supporting what he was doing and letting him. But and you get how a lot of business owners would fall in love with the way they think that the market. It's kind of like designing something that you feel the market would want, but never checking with the market and seeing if that
and candles. It's funny. Candles are a very competitive business.
Right. And they had a lot of good evidence to cause them to believe that they had a good business. If you looked at their distributorships, they had American Apparel, wasn't it American
Apparel?
Urban Outfitters.
Urban Outfitters,
Yes,
sorry.
Urban Outfitters.
But they had some serious outlets that were selling these candles. I personally like the design, and when they ended up going to at the end, I get the broader
appeal.
Market appeal, plus I get the basket, because they ended up going to putting things in baskets, small baskets that you can buy with the candles and with other types of
the Harper Group there.
Yeah, I totally get that, because I've personally in my own consulting, I've advised
bundling.
I've had clients come to me say, I've got this business for scented oils and stuff like that, and it's like, okay, where are they going to find the market for scented oils?
Right.
Well, maybe if you package it and you bundle it, you could create some sort of a bathroom bag, a Body Shop or something like that. and then you've got a product that you can actually sell for at least a $50, $60, $70 price point. But you know, little oils, good luck. And so I see why he wanted to go the candles that way. But do you feel, either of you or both of you, do you feel like any of the original essence of the brand was just completely lost?
Yes.
Yeah. So
And I thought that was
and
a
is that
little
good or is
bit
that bad?
unfortunate.
I
Well,
disagree.
Yeah.
I
What do
lost the. You don't
well,
think so? I think they lost the factor that differentiated them.
The X factor, the
Yeah.
thing that, yeah.
The tortured artist feel.
Right, yeah.
Well, this is the thing, and I think Marcus was very good at explaining this, and he wanted them to be a design and scent company versus just a candle company, because again, Marcus looked at the big picture of the brand,
Right.
and he saw the quality of the design that they had in
so
their
Mark
back
had
pocket.
that talent.
He had that
to-
talent
the
and
graphic
that
design.
resource in his back pocket. They didn't
Right.
even have to outsource that, which actually saved them a lot of money.
Sure.
If you have to hire a staffed designer or even contract a designer out for your business, it can get very expensive. So that was a benefit that Marcus saw in them. And then two, Sam was really good with the scents. She did their focus groups.
Right.
You know, she took time with it. So I think it was a great balancing of them. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that they can't go back to the kitschy, more edgier design and style of things.
To have one
Marcus
line,
needed
a brand
to,
line.
yeah, Marcus
Right.
needed to focus them in order to get to the big picture.
Right.
And you know, like at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. It's going to increase their bottom line. Their business is going to boom and grow, and it's going to make more
What
sense
did you
in the
think of
end.
the
I
new
get it
name?
100%. You know, I know
Yeah.
why. And so the new name, let's talk about that. What did you think?
I thought it was very classy and very chic.
So what was the
and
new name?
appropriate.
The new name was...
It was his last name. Hudson? No.
I meant to write it down.
Oh, I thought you wrote it down. I thought
I did not write that
Congrats.
down.
I was just about to say.
So if you know the new name, please let us know.
Oh my
This is your
gosh.
participation
Oh my gosh.
part.
It's at the tip of my tongue.
But I did really like it too.
It was very classy,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Compared to what they had before. It was very classy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like I said, my thing crashed just
Yeah.
before I came in. I'm like, dang, you know, it was all my notes and stuff. But I mean, it's not hard to get the essence of the episodes.
Right.
So going toward the new name, the baskets, I totally get it from a financial perspective, because if you think of how do you market those types of original candles, stores and shops, okay. But it seems to me online sales would probably be most of where the sales would come from.
Yes.
And you could do a niche marketing campaign just for those, but that's not going to change anybody's world from a financial perspective.
They're
you know?
fantastic housewarming gifts. They're great presents if you're going to go stay at someone's place.
Right.
They're
So,
they're
as a product, as a line of the
bundled
product,
product,
yeah.
And with the bundled product, you get now we can start to really,
Right.
because the bundled product you can send them out, ship them out worldwide. There's so much.
And
that
it
can be done with
feels
that.
more luxurious, honestly. Like I
yeah.
stayed at some amazing hotels, and they look at things from that perspective too. At the end of the day, you want to maximize your brand and your product. And if I as a woman love this scent as a perfume, I will probably like it as a shower gel or a lotion as
Right.
well. And so
and I would like to find it
Yeah.
offered in those. Products, alternatives.
Instead of you having to make it yourself, because then
Right.
you have to go home and find other things that are similar. And it actually, what's dope about it is
They didn't say they had dope in there.
no, it's
People
fine.
know dope.
What's a
Yeah.
great thing about the way that they package their products is that when you layer scents like that,
Right.
they intensify them and they last longer. So it does a couple of things for the product itself. It helps it last throughout the day a lot longer, and it makes it more stronger and more of a potent smell
Captivating,
because you're
yeah.
layering the scents. If I shower
Sure.
in that,
People tell me
and then
I
I put
smell
the
purple.
lotion
The
on,
lotion and then
and then I
spray.
I'm just a walking
You're
flower
good.
basket, okay? In a good way.
We're gonna package you.
Yeah, people tell me I smell potent,
They've
but I don't think in a good way.
They've tried, but you know,
they've tried to
I'm
patent you.
priceless.
Yeah.
They did
That girl.
the thing that was interesting is even with the candles, with the standalone candles, they managed to take the price point down from the original $40 range to $27.28.
Yeah.
Good shift.
And again, that was a competitive range.
And that's
will.
It's so important to know that. I see when this shift over to baskets and the big shift that occurred, losing the idea that Mark had to stick to what he knew and that, but he could listen to the marketplace, find out what they want, fill that need, contribute his gifts in this unique way where he's now filling a need that's really out there. I mean, now he's opened up to birthdays, holidays, the Christmas season, for these gift baskets.
And not just Halloween candles.
Not just Halloween candles. Right.
Yeah, because that was a very niche product. Sometimes the niche can help you, and sometimes the niche can pigeonhole you and actually hurt you as a business. So I thought it was good that they were able to, and then like again, it's not to say that they can't go back and create something that is very special in that gothic way, but they're gonna maximize it because they have different things to offer.
I like the special edition kind of, and you know, even though I know Marcus had a bigger point that he was making, because Mark was holding on to the whole idea that every candle had its story. Right. So he had the story, and he was holding on to that. Now the story is a whole lot of work. I understand that it came into the design process, and I don't think Marcus was so upset that that every candle had its story. If that came into the design, he would have let go of it and not said much, except for the fact that Mark was defending it so much that it must have the story. I don't care how he does his design work as long as he gets there, but Mark was
stressed, okay? Mark had $30,000 in debt. He owed Sam's dad, and he had $600 in the bank.
Oh, it was Sam's dad that put in the 20, was it?
Yes, and I would be trying to hold on to every penny I had too, and my emotions. And as a man, there's so much that behind the curtain that goes into that. It's like,
well, you saw
gonna
his ego get checked when Marcus called the business a startup, and he said, "Well, no, we've been around for 5 years." And Marcus said, "Well, if you look at your debt equity ratio, no, sir, you're a startup."
Hell, I've been a startup all my life.
It was a lot. It was a lot for Mark to deal with, and I feel like I understand his stress, you know, like I get it, because one, as a man, you're there to provide for your family. And he wasn't able to provide for his family, unfortunately. Not only that, his business, what he thought was a growing business, was on a very intense.
He wasn't really. He was kind of in denial, wasn't he? He was in denial.
He was. And he wasn't very willing to work with others as well at the beginning of the episode.
But that came from his ego being hurt. And the stress, like people don't take the time to get their mind right before they leave the house, right? Like when they say you meditate, like
mind right.
You know, especially in this business world, if you're an entrepreneur, it's so much that you have to deal with. You don't have like a set schedule where you got to show up every day. But with their business, they were entrepreneurs, so it was 24 hours.
It becomes an obsession.
He didn't go to sleep thinking about it.
Especially
when you're working with your wife or your husband,
it goes
you take
home
that
with you.
So you have no mental release.
So I felt bad for Mark, and I'm glad that Marcus again was able to step in, not just as a psychiatrist, which he always does, but he stepped in as like a dad, and it was cool for him to be able to talk to Mark about his family issues and where the source of the problem came from and how he didn't trust anyone. And that was why it was hard for him to work with that candle vendor, because it was great in the moment when they were all there together, because Mark felt like he had Marcus and Sam there with him. They were all in the factory. But when it came down to him dealing with them one-on-one, he didn't follow up because he felt like they were going to reject him. They were going to do him wrong again. And it was going to take him back to his early days.
So a bunch of fear.
It was all this psychology and the source of where that was coming from. So I'm glad that Marcus was patient enough to see that and try and pull that out of him, because he almost didn't do it. And Marcus almost walked away.
It's not the first time, though, that he's done that either.
No, but you need that. You need that self-assessment, that self-improvement in order to grow both your business and yourself, and to be able to fuel yourself to give back to your business.
Yeah, for sure. The fear was it was a major component that was blocking, and that's, once again, to Marcus's credit, he has the ability to go in there and talk to people, because these issues are 9 times out of 10 people issues. You know, we've seen the improvement in process, obviously. Getting outside manufacturers and that type of thing, or bringing in the reps and distributors. Those things work, but then the end of the day is it comes back to the people that are involved, and that's kind of what's neat to see. The conversations that occur, and it's not rocket science. It's but there's definitely some there's the know-how. You know, he's like a mechanic for these businesses, and it's neat to see how they do it.
He's like
and again, I mean, we
superhero.
wish Mark
A superhero.
and Sam well.
That's what they said.
Literally.
Yeah, that's what Mark said. He said, "What are you, Clark Kent?" He said,
It's crazy. Like Marcus has like this magic wand. He goes in on these
invested
businesses.
in 85 businesses now. 85.
Wow, on the show or
not
no?
on the show.
Yeah,
In total,
it's been about 30 on the show, I think.
Well,
Yeah,
30 on
but
the show,
85
to the tune of about $35 million
on the show.
Yeah.
on
He
the show.
totally should have been the new boss of The Apprentice.
Well, he's got a new show coming out called The Partner.
I know,
Yeah.
which is like a spinoff of The Apprentice. But I
Right.
feel like that brand, which was already established, it would have
a
been
bigger
awesome.
brand, yeah.
It would have been great to see Marcus there because I feel like Marcus, he really has got his chops like polished and
Right.
he knows what he's doing.
Right.
And for everyone that trusts and knows and supports The Profit,
Right.
hey everybody, it's cool. It would have been cool to take him on a grander scale.
Sure.
And let that audience that follows The Apprentice of more an entertainment side get to see him do that.
Totally
It would
get
have
it,
been
yeah.
really cool. And if
Because honestly, he'd probably be more well qualified than
he's
Arnie would be.
absolutely
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
well qualified.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right, in
Yeah.
terms of business turnaround and that type of thing.
That would have
and,
been awesome.
You
never know, it
But
could
there
still
could be more
happen.
drama if Arnie brings his maid.
We don't want none of them problems. Okay.
Just kidding. Love you, Arnie. All right. So what were the biggest learnings that y'all took out of this? You
wow.
have a business. I mean, you're a DJ. You're also doing your on-air broadcasting and that type of thing.
Yeah.
Are there things from these two episodes that you can apply directly to your business, which if you did, it'd be more powerful?
I definitely, and I work with different businesses doing
Right.
freelance work. But at the end of the day, I definitely think it is important to subtract emotion out of your business. And we've seen that in other episodes,
Right.
especially this one. Subtract emotions and be patient.
It's easier said than done, you know.
And
but,
have patience. Like it's not personal. It's business at the end of the day. And if you do that on a personal level first, and then deal with whatever you're dealing with, you'll get to the bottom line and subtract all that, and the drama won't happen. That's one. Two, I definitely feel like you got to deal with your skeletons in the closet because they not only affect you, they affect others, and they affect people that depend on you if you have a family.
Right.
They also affect your business and your consumers. So it's really this intense trickle down effect that happens. And so if we're mindful of what we've been through in our past, and we've all been through something, right?
Right.
You know, we all have issues growing up. None of us had a perfect life growing up.
Right.
So I
We
think
thought
that's
you
really
did, but-
important. No, I've probably been through more than
Either of us.
put together.
Everybody here in the
Trust me.
building, yeah.
Trust me, but I think that's really important to deal with that stuff, and then you'll ideally be successful as an employee of a business or running your own business.
Awesome. Thank you. What about you, Katerina? What do you?
What I liked about it was just the
What big
focus
learnings? What
on-
big learnings
So the
do
big
you
learning
think
for me
for
was
you?
just to make sure you don't keep your business too narrow in focus.
Right.
I think you need to take a step back and make sure you address your efforts towards something that is going to bring you some returns.
Right.
Otherwise, call it a hobby. Don't call it a business.
There you go. Yeah.
Right.
And that's where they really would have been heading
Sure.
too. As
They
well.
were heading there.
Yeah.
They were.
Okay, big learnings for me from these two episodes. I mean, the people issues, and I'll agree that deal with your shit because if you don't, everybody in the world has to deal with it as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're pulling our music on. They're like, well, enough of your shit. So we're gonna wrap this sucker up. Tell us where we can get a hold of you, Katerina.
All right, so thanks again for watching. We love being here with you. You can catch me at Katerina Cozias, Instagram and Twitter.
Beautiful.
At Niena Drake on every social media. Go to nienadrake.com directly.
Boy, she's consolidated, she's aggregated, she's got it all together. She's merged entities. We are at Chris Howard Live. You can find me Instagram and Twitter on legendarylivingdaily.com for tips and motivation, and legendarylivingtv.com for YouTube. And make sure to download our podcast at iTunes so that you can
Yes.
get this stuff drip fed, IV fed into your system. And meet us next week for The Profit.
Woo! See ya.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later. We got it.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.